John Bolton, who's felt the same way for the longest time, who was once the UN ambassador for the United States of America, and now he's National Security Advisor at the White House. So, John Bolton, great to see you again. Now that you're not on the payroll, I know you're here voluntarily. But what were your thoughts as Nikki Haley was saying those words behind the microphone? You wanted that decades ago, right?
Yeah, I thought she was exactly right. I thought Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was right on target as well. You know, this decision in many respects has been decades in the making. The Human Rights Council, its predecessor, the Human Rights Commission, were really not places where human rights was a priority, strange as that may seem. So it's clearly the right decision to get off. It's the right decision to defund the Human Rights Council and the High Commissioner for Human Rights. And it's something I think that goes to the broader question of American sovereignty. You know, we're actually self-governing in this country. We have a constitution. We make our share of mistakes, and we correct them. We don't need advice by the UN or other international bodies on how to govern ourselves.
All right. So, John, officially leaving over a bias against Israel. And, in fact, between the years of 2006 through 16, this commission condemned Israel 68 times, condemned Syria 20 times, and condemned Iran 6 times for comparative purposes. But as well, it is raising some eyebrows, us pulling out of this council, because it follows one day after their high commissioner criticized the United States over President Trump's immigration policies, separating families.
Well, it had nothing to do with that. This decision was made by President Trump weeks ago. It followed long decision-making and review of the Human Rights Council's performance. And as I say, it's something that reflects a widely held view in the United States. It's one reason why in 2006, when I was up at the UN, we voted against creating this council because we said it was not adequately reformed. It would not change its behavior from its predecessor, Human Rights Commission. And the last 12 years have simply proven that. So I think what Mike Pompeo and Nikki Haley announced yesterday was exactly the right thing. It does have these broader implications for American sovereignty around the world. You know, we did talk about Israel because it's singled out unfairly, but in many respects, Israel is, as the saying goes, a canary in the mine shaft for the United States. Countries that attack Israel do it because they think it's easier, but much of their criticism is really aimed at us.
You know, there are many people watching that live in the middle of the country that are just, you know, trying to get dressed for work this morning. They don't know what this council is. They don't know what these commissions and these committees are. Will you, just in layman's terms, tell us, for those folks watching that have never heard of this council, what exactly it means to them at home?
Well, I think getting off the council is an assertion of American determination to stick by its Constitution and not to recognize that there's some higher authority at the UN, whether it's the Council or the High Commissioner for Human Rights, to judge our performance or to give us advice on how to implement the Constitution. We're perfectly capable of doing that ourselves. We make our share of mistakes, and we correct our mistakes. That's what this is about, self-government.
So, John Bolton, we know the drama happened a couple of weeks ago as the President of the United States went to Singapore to meet with the North Korean leader. I know you were there every step of the way. What would you say is the most encouraging and discouraging thing that happened during the Singapore summit? We know that the North Korean leader is meeting with all world leaders maybe for the first time. He was in China a couple of days ago. What did we get out of that?
Well, I think the president made it very clear to Kim Jong-un he faces a decisive, a dramatic choice. Whether after decades of development, North Korea is prepared to give up its nuclear weapons program, its chemical and biological weapons, its ballistic missiles, and turn away from that approach to its international relations. And if it does, it can have a very different future.
What do you
think?
Doesn't, did they indicate to you, John, that they were willing to do this for the first time in your career?
Well, they've said they would do it, and I think now we'll see Secretary Mike Pompeo and others meeting with them, discussing it with them, and we'll find out soon enough, I think, whether they've made this strategic decision.
Well, if they do, then eventually the sanctions come off, at least some of them. How close are we to that?
Well, I think the first move here is really for North Korea to make. They've said they want complete denuclearization. Now we're going to have to talk about how to achieve that. And I think you will see diplomatic engagement proceed very quickly. President Trump's been quite clear he doesn't intend to make the mistakes of past administrations, so lengthy, delaying talks, I think, are not in store. I think we'd like to move quickly, and if they're serious, North Korea should want to move quickly too.
And if they're not, the sanctions go back on, and we urge the world community to do the same. What if the genie's out of the bottle and they won't?
Well, I think the president's made it very clear that they're facing a choice, and that until we get real evidence, palpable, concrete steps of denuclearization, all the sanctions will stay in force. We're urging everybody to continue them, and we'll watch very closely what North Korea not only says, but what it does.
Smart. Proof is in the pudding. Thanks so much, John Bolton. We appreciate you
Glad to
being
be
with
with
us
you.
live. All right, now to some more headlines. A convicted rapist caught on camera trying to kidnap a jogger is arraigned from his hospital bed. Gordon Lyons pleading not guilty to attempted kidnapping and assault while covering his face with a sheet. Lyons was driving down a Massachusetts street when he pulled over and tried to snatch a woman that was jogging by. She fought back. Someone watching called the cops. Lyons was convicted of sexual assault back in 1978. Fired FBI Director James Comey now firing back at Hillary Clinton.
Even at this late date, she doesn't understand what the investigation in her case was about. It was not about her use of a personal email system. It was about communicating about classified topics on that system.
Comey responding to Clinton, who tweeted, quote, "But my emails?" as her reaction to news that Comey once used his personal email for FBI business.
Yeah, so he might have done something very similar. So good
Might have.
luck.
I think
James
he did.
Comey's always a million miles above it. I'm sorry, you still have more to read?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
All right, next story. Punches go flying after a massive brawl breaks out between parents during a girls' 12 and under softball tournament. Watch this. The brawl started as a shouting match between parents from competing teams. Both teams competing in the Tennessee tournament were disqualified. No one was hurt or arrested. Is that what your girls' soccer?
It has not
Soccer
happened
games
like
look
that,
like?
but it's gotten close a few
Wait,
times.
who's this?
Go ahead, please.
All right, we all know so much about Brian. He loves his dogs. They're named Rocky and Apollo.
That's all I've told you.
And now we finally have an answer to the age-old question. Which are smarter, cats or dogs? The answer, drum roll, dogs. Researchers at a university in England finding dogs have more brain power. Dogs have around 530 million neurons, and cats only have 250.
Well, they got smaller heads,
That's true.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
does that have anything to do with it?
Right.
Right.
Not as much space in there for the neurons.
Exactly.
If dogs are so smart, why do they drink out of the toilet?
Because it's there, and you left the toilet seat up, Steve.
Wait a minute, your dogs have a lot of neurons because these are the biggest dogs you've ever seen. They're like bears.
And they are extremely smart. And guess what? For the first time since really their 12-week point, they'll be back in studio because I told them about the new studio.
Friday, right?
Friday is Take Your Dogs to Work Day.
How do you even get them in your car?
We don't know how exactly we're doing it yet.
Is
And what am I
going
going to do when I'm on radio?
Brian, your dogs are really smart. They'll figure a way to town.
Right.
You watch.
They're not cats.
You got
All
to
right.
take them to radio too.
Meanwhile, it's time for some extreme weather. And Janice, look at that. It looks like some severe stuff in Kansas and Nebraska
You're
and
right.
Colorado.
Look at the storm reports, several tornado reports as well outside of the Denver area. Take a look at this video. Thankfully, no one was injured during the making of this video, but that is an incredible looking tornado. I mean, it looks like something out of a movie. This is Weld County, Colorado, and this is right outside of Denver. No one has been injured with these severe storms. Thank goodness for that. Look at those horses. They're just like, doo-doo-doo. Right, absolutely. How many neurons in a horse?
70.
Okay, let's take a look at the past 24 hours across portions of Texas and Louisiana, because this is a concern. We've got all of this tropical moisture moving into this region and the potential for flash flooding. We've had several inches of rain already. On top of that, especially across South Texas, 4 to 6, even 8 inches around the Corpus Christi area. So that's going to be a concern. Here are your highs today across the country. A little cooler than average across the northern Rockies, the northern plains. We do have the potential for strong to severe thunderstorms across the Plains Straits, stretching in towards the mid-Atlantic, and it remains warm across the southeast as well as the southern plains. And look at Phoenix. And by the way, tomorrow is the first official day of summer. It's here, my friends.
The longest day of the year, right?
Yes, and then it starts to get shorter and shorter.
Right.
But we'll love it for now.
Because the sun goes down, but it's still the same amount of time in a day.
24 hours.
Right, very,
Right.
very good
more
point.
sunshine.
A lot of neurons up there, Brian Kelly.
Thank you.
Tons. All right.
I
James,
beat the
thank you.
dog by a mile.
All right. Meanwhile, straight ahead, President Trump is making the economy great again. Food stamp enrollment is now at an 8-year low.